Thank you very much, Andrew, and thank you, Stephen, for your warm introduction. It's congratulations to you and the CEDA organisation. It's a terrific conference. I've been invited to talk today about the adaptation of traditional businesses in this digital age that Andrew has set up very, very nicely. It's obviously an apt topic for us at Australia Post because our business was originally built around the paper-based communication service, the old humble letter, which we've been delivering to Australians for over 200 years. And as many of you are undoubtedly aware, that service is being severely disrupted now, and as the community shifts to these digital forms of communication, more so than ever. This is a challenge that we've been grappling with daily at Australia Post. To borrow a term that you used just a minute ago, Andrew, I think what I'll try to cover today is both not only the impact of technology on traditional businesses, but also the opportunity that technology gives us at Australia Post. The digital disruption of our letter service, I know, has been in the headlines over the past couple of weeks. It is a newsworthy topic because every single one of us is a user in some shape or form. But we're also, all of us here in this room, are shareholders of Australia Post. While it might be news for some, for us certainly this is not new. The Australian community has been gradually shifting towards digital forms of communication since the 1990s. For about 190 years, between 1810 and 2000, our delivered volumes were always a leading indicator of the health of the Australian economy. Our letter volumes grew and shrunk at the same rate as GDP. But in 2000, that link, mail volumes and GDP, was broken. And it was broken permanently in hindsight. With more people emailing, our mail volumes stopped growing, and they stayed at the same level for the next 8 years. While we delivered 5 billion letters annually at our peak, built up over the previous 200 years, there were over 400 billion emails sent annually within 15 years. And this is one of the reasons that I tend to think of digital revolution more so than the word than just an evolution, because after 2008, Australia Post was hit with an absolute revolution. And we felt that revolution by two means. One was the technology revolution that I was just referring to, and that was the mass market success of smartphones, led initially by Apple's successful release of its iPhone, which meant the world's information and services became truly mobile. But there was a second factor in 2008 that also affected many industries and many businesses, and that was the GFC itself. That meant that businesses looked to cut costs and adapt to cheaper forms of communication. When you take these two factors, combined with the falling price of broadband and the fast mobile connections via 3G that was launched around the same time period, and the more recent 4G services, this has driven a rapid adoption of digital and data services. Everything became accessible anywhere at any time. And today, we have something like 70 to 80% penetration of smartphones and broadband services across Australia. The impact of these two changes was felt most sharply by businesses that traditionally delivered their services on paper. Think of newspaper and magazine circulation, yellow page advertising, or even check volumes. We've analysed the impact of digital disruption on a whole range of services like these that were traditionally delivered on paper. In nearly all cases, 2008 was a pivotal year. That was either when paper-based products either peaked and started declining, or it was already in decline and, quite frankly, fell off a cliff. That is exactly the same trend that we have seen with letters. After 8 years of stable volumes, that is between 2000 and 2008, our letter volumes suddenly plummeted in 2008. The community's and customers' use of our letter service fell 5% in that 1 year, and it has continued to fall in every year since. Today, there's 30% less mail in your letterbox than 6 years ago. Australian letter volumes have shrunk back to 1994 levels. And compared to our peak, our posties today are delivering 1 billion fewer letters. But since that period of 1994, we've had a second factor also affecting us. Since 1994, we've had 4 million more delivery addresses to deliver to 5 days a week, 98% around Australia. That's a 50% increase in the points of delivery that we have. That's looking back. As we look forward, we anticipate and we are forecasting that our mail volume decline will continue to accelerate. While it's been running in the 5 to 6% range, we anticipate that over the coming years it will move towards 8 to 12% per year. This is a highly unsustainable position when you have declining letter volume and increasing points of delivery. The economics does not stack up. To put it in another way, where mail volumes used to be the leading indicator of GDP, today the erosion of our volumes are really indicative of the rapid rise of the digital economy in Australia. The lessons of history tell us that communities and people always suffer when they fail to prepare for or adapt to this kind of change. The community and our customers have adapted and they have changed, and so must we. That's the premise of the transformation program at Australia Post. It's all about adapting to this shift in customer behaviour that's being driven by the online digital world. That means carefully managing the decline of our letters business while also capitalising on the opportunities to serve Australians in new ways. I know thus far I've spoken about the impact of the digital disruption solely in negative terms on our letter service business. But we at Australia Post also believe that there are real opportunities opening up in the digital economy. It's not only true for us, it's also true for our nation. Despite the decline in letter volumes, we have managed to maintain, I believe, an outstanding letter service while investing in building in our future. Our most immediate growth opportunity is obviously in parcels. As a partner of e-commerce companies delivering Australia's online shopping, our parcel network now underpins the growth of hundreds of small businesses that are the engine room of Australia's e-commerce marketplace. It is being launched under the Star Trek brand with a blue P to signify its link with Australia Post and P for parcels. Our parcels business is supporting online pioneers such as Catch of the Day, AusSales, Deals Direct, but also eBay and other marketplace platforms. There are many, many, many pure-play e-tailers that just simply did not exist 5 years ago. But we're also supporting traditional retailers who are going online very vigorously, whether they be Myer, David Jones, Woolworths, Target, and many of the wonderful wine sellers across the country. We provide them with fast, reliable ways of getting their product to their customer at highly competitive prices. So their success is our success. We've had 8 to 10% growth in our parcels volumes over the past few years, completely driven by online shopping. Our profit in the non-regulated parcels business has doubled over the last 3 years, which has given us the capital and the confidence to keep investing in new customer service initiatives. For this reason, our investment program is focused on capitalising on our growth opportunities in parcels and e-commerce. We have invested $600 million to expand the capacity of our parcel centres so we can deliver more efficiently for Australian businesses. Our expanded Sydney and Melbourne centres will be ready for this year's Christmas peak. We have also announced that we will deliver parcels on Saturday and will open up our post offices on Saturdays to support the changing customer preferences that are occurring. We have invested in new equipment for our staff, including our posties and our stores, so that we can handle these growth opportunities. We have an important responsibility to support our employees and business partners like the LPOs to help them handle the transition in our customers' changing preferences. We've invested in improving the customer experience like our 24/7 parcel lockers. We've installed these lockers at 175 sites across Australia. What that means is 7 million Australians already now have the option of a free parcel locker pickup within a 10-minute drive of their home. In this way, we're giving Australians the added convenience of collecting their parcels when it suits them, day or night. This innovation is critical because the community needs the out-of-work hours access to their purchases, and we take seriously our responsibility to servicing those needs. Too often, I think people think of innovation in the mystical IT terms, but innovation isn't just about the application of technology and big data. It's very important, as Andrew was pointing out earlier, but it's also about serving your customers better, offering them greater convenience, choice, control. This is innovation. And in my view, you cannot lose sight of the most basic rule of business. The customer is still king. And in my view, the winners of the digital economy will use digital channels to make life easier and more convenient for their customers. The opportunities that are opening up in the digital economy are very exciting. But to capitalise on those opportunities, we at Australia Post first must confront the dilemma of this change. Our biggest dilemma at Post, as I mentioned, undoubtedly, is the rapid decline of the letters service. In its current format, our letters service is becoming increasingly costly and unsustainable. Last year, our letters business lost $218 million, bringing our cumulative 5-year losses in letters to around $600 million. This year alone, we are projecting a further loss of $300 million. So it took us 6 years to accumulate, 5 years, to accumulate $600 million. In 1 year, this year, we will lose over $300 million. And beyond that, we're projecting a loss, an annual loss of $1 billion per annum. That's a hole that is far too big to be filled by ongoing productivity gains or profits from our parcels business. As a matter of fact, the current half year is the first time that losses in our letters business will overwhelm the profits we earn in parcels. Ladies and gentlemen, if Australia Post fails, we will not be able to continue this critical social role that post offices and posties have played for over 200 years, connecting communities. In many rural areas, the post office is the last door open in a digital world that is becoming becoming more isolating for some community groups. So our role is more important than ever in this digital world. We will shift from being a national asset to a national liability. We have not received $1 of taxpayer subsidies in the past 25 years. And in the past 4 years, we've been able to fund the $600 million of letter losses from our own earnings. We've been able to fund $1.1 billion of CapEx to grow the business. We've been able to fund $700 million of dividends to the federal government. Despite the competitive market challenges we face, we've managed this very delicate balancing act of the community service and delivering a commercial rate of return. But ladies and gentlemen, without reform of our community service obligation in letters, we will soon cease being a contributor to the government's revenue and instead become a drain on it. The projected losses will soon be so large that we won't be able to fund our parcels business or support the viability of this extensive and wonderful post office network across the country. Without reform of our Act, our Act requires us to fund the losses in our letters service, our reserved services business, through asset sales, and only then, after that, request taxpayer-funded government support. This is something that nobody wants at Australia Post or in the community. We don't want to be the next Kodak. So the time for action is now. We have a clear plan for transforming Australia Post so that we are building new growth areas for years to come. That involves growing our retail trusted services and our highly successful Star Trek parcels business. It also involves continuing to offer physical delivery of letters for all Australians, but with a new multi-speed delivery offering. We have already introduced this offering for business and government customers who are responsible for sending 95% of our mail. Our multi-speed service was introduced for them on the 2nd of June without hiccup. Our reform proposal involves creating choice for customers and not assuming that one size fits all in a declining letters market. We want to offer all Australians a choice of letter service with differing delivery speed, and those services should be priced to recoup the cost of actually delivering them. These reforms will secure a viable future for Australia Post and allow us to remain relevant in the 21st century. As we make these changes, we will continue to be mindful of the impact this will have on our employees, regional and rural communities, LPOs and disadvantaged people, and we will ensure that we will insulate them from any impacts as much as possible. We need to make these changes now to ensure that that communities we serve continue to benefit as we all make this shift into this digital world. As I said earlier, the consequences can be really poor when we ignore change. So we're intent on taking action now to turn this dilemma into an opportunity for Australia Post and the communities that we serve. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.